Um, we are going to talk about discovery layers. And I've got some questions. You can see these. It sounds like we've got quite a wide variety of people here, so there may be lots of different options for discovery that we can talk about. And so feel free to chime in at any point, and we'll also be monitoring the chat. So we'll go ahead and just start out with the different multiple means of discovery that people are using. We use Sierra, we use Encore, and OCLC, WMS a little bit. So we do have, we have to do, there's redundancy in our workload because of that, to manage two different discovery pieces, which it works, but it's a lot of work. Anybody else want to chime in?
At Grand Valley, we have Sierra and then Summon, and it doesn't cause too much duplication, just a little bit, and getting our records over to Summon from Sierra. So it doesn't cause a ton of work for us.
How do you do that?
So there are ways to automate it, but we still do it manually. It's about a 5-minute task that someone does. So just an export of all the records updated the day before and sent.
So you do it daily?
Yeah, we do it every day.
Okay.
Well, every weekday.
But 5 minutes, that doesn't sound like too much.
No, it doesn't take too much.
Hi, this is Jen Holman at Hope, and we also have Sierra and Summon. And it does get kind of confusing because we also, not only do we send Summon records, Sierra records out to Summon, but then we also are importing link resolver data back into Sierra, and there's some ebooks that are also managed on our link resolver. We also pull into Sierra, and then they get uploaded to Summon, and they show twice, and it is kind of messy.
What's your link resolver?
We're using 360 Link.
Okay. Anybody else using something different?
We use Summon here.
Oh, lots of Summon.
This is Teresa at Macomb. We used to use EDS and Horizon. About a year and a half ago, we switched over to Ex Libris, so we're using it for our discovery primo layer, we call that, and then also we also use it as our link resolver. So.
Okay.
At Ferris State, we have Primo, but we're also, at least until we migrate to Alma, running Encore and Classic Catalog, because we have Sierra as a backend. And then we run SFX. And if you include the A to Z list and LibGuides, there's a bunch of places stuff needs to be updated, which is why I'm wondering if we should start running ebooks and everything eResource through SFX instead of trying to keep it in the catalog and keep bib records for it. So I know some of this will be eliminated when we migrate to Alma, but we still have a couple different places.
Yeah, it's a couple. It sounds like 3 or 4. Do you end up with duplication in your catalog?
Yeah, that's actually, I was tempted to ask, I think it was Teresa who said they run ebooks through their link resolver. We're having issues, or at least I am, because I screwed some stuff up, with ebook central records and eBury records and overlaying because of our overlay tables. So now I'm thinking maybe we should just throw it all out and just run it through SFX. But I don't know how that's going to impact everyone else. Because we're still getting used to the idea of a catalog scope and not having the separate Encore alternative, because I do have faculty that prefer Encore because it's an easier interface to use and it's more what they're expecting when they look for stuff. Whereas Primo still needs tweaking. And because we're total care, I haven't had a chance to tweak it. So I'm a little excited about VE.
Anybody else using anything different?
I wanted to let you know that there is Beth Johns gave what she was doing in the chat, and then Tina asked, why did, I think it was Teresa, give up on EDS?
Well, it never really worked. It was a lot of work to get it running, but the real reason we gave up on it is because we switched to Alma. So we got the discovery layer included in that as part of the package because we're in the DALNet consortium. And it doesn't work ideally, but I'm still chipping away at it because just of staffing issues and timing to get everything working and to devote enough time to get things running the way they should be and to get the majority of our materials discoverable through that one place.
Thank you, Teresa.
Beth, what did you start out with? You said you went to EDS about a year ago. What were you with prior to that? Oh, you had nothing. I see. So is EDS working out for you? Okay, we use Full Text Finder as well. All right. So I should thank Deja ahead of time because she helped me with some of these questions. So in this next one, about the where else are things discoverable? And obviously in the vendor platform, we've got our OPAC, we have an A to Z list. We don't have research guides. But then we do have the Encore that is, I guess, what I would call our main search for everybody and our main discovery platform. I personally don't care for it, but because it brings in too many things that we actually don't have, but that's what we use.
I'm wondering if anyone has a standard by which you judge how much of your staff time you have to invest in a service as opposed to what you are buying from them. It just seems like with EDS, we spend way too much time tweaking and problem solving and fixing. And then I think, what are we paying them for?
It's a good question.
Yeah, at Grand Valley, I don't know if we have a standard, but whenever we look at something new or looking to introduce a new system or a new resource, sorry, my lights just went off. We weigh if there's a benefit to the student. So if the student's not going to notice a difference and we're going to have to do more work, we definitely don't do it. If there's a little difference and there's a lot of work, we definitely don't do it. If it's a pretty even trade-off, we might do it. And if there's definitely a huge benefit to the student and not a ton of work, we definitely do it. So for us, it's all about how much the student's going to get out of it, because we can change a lot of stuff on the back end that students will never even notice. So
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Patrick, you're talking about
Everything.
the amount of work you're doing rather than the actual cost up front for the discovery.
right, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
budget's a whole separate discussion, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. A painful one.
Yeah. Lately, a pretty short one.
No. Okay.
I don't know if this will help. We're going to be talking about ILS assessment in the March Technical Services Interest Group. I have no experience in that. Every time I've had to change something, it was one of those, we bought this either for budgetary reasons or somebody thought it was a better system. So I can't really speak to how you would evaluate it, but I will throw that out there.
Beth made a comment about using LibGuides and their A to Z list. We do the same thing, and that makes, I'm assuming, Beth, that we're talking about the same thing here. That makes management of the databases on like research guides a lot easier, because the databases are treated like assets. So if you change one on the database list, it'll get changed in the subject guide too. So you're not having to manage it in two places.
I've seen that a couple different places, that people use the LibGuides as a discovery. Does that make sense, or can you explain that a little bit more?
So the only way we are currently using it is just as our database A to Z list. So if you go to our homepage and want to see all the journals, you can click it and it takes you to a huge long list divided up by alphabetically or by subject.
Okay.
We just use it for, and then subject guides, of course. So if you change an entry on the A to Z list to like the new link or a new name, or, ProQuest decides to change all their names again, you just have to change it once, and then it'll change it for all the subject guides as well.
Okay.
But we're not using it. I mean, I would say that's probably not the most popular way of discovering a journal, unless you know exactly what journal you're looking for.
Yeah.
If you do have Primo, you can set up a new feature in there too, resource recommender, which is what I did because I really want to pull our database catalog records out and still have name access. And we couldn't get our LibGuides in Primo without paying extra. They wanted like another $4,000 for a separate item facet, and I was like, no, because I could do it if I had access to the back end. I saw a nice presentation on it. So that's another problem, well, not really problem, challenge of keeping things updated, because I base that list off like our master A to Z list, which is also in SpringShare. And we're cleaning up our assets because we had a lot of people, all our librarians are in SpringShare and they all have the same rights. So we have like, I thought 8,000 copies of our Smart search box as assets, because people would just keep copying them over. So ideally it will work as Patrick says, and that's, the goal. I'm a little scared about putting ebooks in there because there's no way to search by ISBN. So we have to also maintain a spreadsheet of ISBNs and titles in case something breaks. So that's another fun challenge.
Yeah, we had to do, not we, I'm going to not take credit for this. Matthew, our web services librarian, did a lot of work with our liaisons on not doing exactly what you just mentioned, of copying assets instead of just using the one that exists already. Yeah.
We have LibGuides as well, and do have a database A to Z list, but to find an individual journal title, we utilize the summon function generally for that. We can point students to that. Also in the LibGuides.
I know we are not utilizing LibGuides to our best advantage at this point, and I'm not the one that does that, but that's good information to have that I can pass on. So, this is sort of in the same vein. I'm curious where everybody is getting MARC records. Do you get them just directly from the vendor? We get ours from OCLC, which is good. They have good records, but they don't always have what we need.
I don't know how to answer that question.
We do a mixture, so we get, I think the preference is to get the records from OCLC, but if we can only get them from the vendor, then we get them from the vendor. So.
Okay.
We're kind of the opposite. I prefer to get them from the vendor, especially if we're going to be able to have to overlay them. But sometimes, like the reference shelf records, for some reason, only the print ones are on OCLC, so we may end up adapting them and making them eResource records. And I don't know if this is too much of a rabbit hole, but I'm kind of curious if anyone wants to talk about how they decide what goes on their master A to Z list. We just sort of copied ours into SpringShare when our web resources or web services person retired, and in our case it's a motley assortment of stuff, and I feel like it should be my control, but I also prefer to sort of decentralize because I don't like being a gatekeeper, so I'm never quite certain what the process is anywhere for deciding what goes on that list.
I know that some institutions have policies about it, or at least a guideline, but I think some of it is just political. You know, it may not be what I think of as a database, but it's used often enough, it's popular enough, and librarians want to embed it in their various libguides, so we throw it on there.
So, Deja, am I understanding you right that you will get the MARC records from a vendor and then look at them to see if they're what you want, and then overlay them if they're not?
Kind of. You mostly look at the vendor records to see what you want. The overlaying only comes in, like, if it's a regular vendor that we know we're going to have to overlay, then we definitely prefer their records to trying to deal with OCLC. That's also partly because I don't have, like, collection manager or anything set up, which I should set up, but I've been trying to reduce the amount of software we're dealing with until we get to, like, post-migration, which will have 3 pieces eliminated, so we can take on more.
Okay.
So for MARC records, we get all of our eJournal MARC records from Serial Solutions. And then ebook records, we generally try to get from the vendors. And I try to deal with OCLC as little as possible.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not a big fan.
Okay, you just not had good luck. Yeah.
I'm a fan, but my boss would really like us to get off the subscription. She's very hopeful that will happen with Alma because we've applied to have a reduced cost and we're contributing a lot of original cataloging of our vinyl albums. And they're still like, no, we're not going to reduce your price. And I know it's frustrating, but I'm like, we need those records. On the other hand, there's a big push, at least here, to try and get off OCLC for, money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we use OCLC just like everyone else. It's just, I feel like anytime we make a change in collection manager, it messes up more than it helps. So we try to not, so like a few vendors only make their MARC records available through OCLC collection manager. And every time we meet with them, we comment, don't do that. Just have a file we can go download, please. So.
Okay. Don't you end up with a mismatched bunch of records then? If you have, let's say you have the same journal from, 4 different vendors, do they all line up together or do you end up with 4 different records?
So all of our eJournal records come from Serial Solutions.
Yeah.
So that's not a problem.
Okay.
If they're from multiple vendors, they combine the stupid sensors in the wrong spot in my office. The 856s all get combined into one record when we get them for the different vendors.
Okay.
Then for the ebook records, we're only getting, in theory, that book from a vendor, which is not always the case. But then when those records are updated by that vendor, we would get an updated file, and it would just overlay for that vendor and not on other stuff, in theory. It doesn't always work as well as it sounds, but most of the time it does.
All right. Well, I guess we can move on. Is there anybody that just has one means of discovery? Let me check the chat.
No, we have a lot of our ebooks available in the catalog as well as in Summon. So that's two places you could potentially find an ebook record.
Yeah.
In July, we'll be on Alma, so there'll only be one place. Very excited.
So the catalog and Alma and the discovery, they're all together.
Yep, the cataloging or the activating happens in Alma, and it gets published out to Primo. But there's only one place to make updates, and they get applied immediately, which is going to be fantastic.
Jen, did you get a sense of, I watched the Primo VE presentation from ALA Midwinter. Did you get a sense of how they were, because in the new version, they're supposed to match your print holdings with your e-holdings in the same display, but they never went into like how they did that, like what they were matching on for like an identifier.
I've only been using our sandbox version, and I don't know how the back end is working, but if I search for Newsweek, I can pull it up and see that there are print holdings and electronic holdings on the record. So even though I think there's still two different records, one for print, one for electronic, but you can see the other holdings there.
Okay, so someone's verified it works that I trust. Yay! I still don't know how, but that's okay. I'm very excited.
To be determined, yeah.
All right. So it looks like we're all dealing with multiple means of discovery. Has anybody ever had to reduce the number of ways that you can locate resources? And how did that go over?
For a while ago, a long time ago at this point, we had, hold on, I gotta think. So Voyager at the time, I think we were still on Voyager. We might have been just on Sierra. Encore and Summon. We had that for about a year and a half. And it was not a hard decision to get rid of Encore over Summon. So, and we had a hosted Encore at the time, and it was super slow. So that was part of it.
And Summon is better.
We liked it better, yes.
Okay.
And that was before Encore had any of the. They have article discovery stuff now too, right? Yeah, they didn't have any of that at the time. So.
Okay.
We had 3 A to Z lists for our databases when I came about a year and a half ago. One was just kind of a homegrown web-enabled database on our website, and then we had the list through LibGuides, and then we also have Sierra's ERM, which produces a database A to Z list. And we decided to go with the LibGuides list, and I felt like it was a pretty easy decision. It saved time and effort for staff, and made it easier for users that there was just one place to go.
Where was the link? Were your LibGuides right on your homepage?
They were not. We didn't make that change until the decision was made to use LibGuides as our primary list, and then we put the link on our webpage.
Okay. If you guys have other questions you want to throw out there, feel free. This open discussion, and these questions are just a guideline for us. I'm interested to hear that people are lukewarm on MARC records from OCLC, because that's kind of our bread and butter here. We live and die by OCLC records, which has its drawbacks. Okay. Do you ever get feedback from your patrons about your discovery and how it works and whether or not it's confusing? I think that's the thing we get most often, is that people say, I can't find what I'm looking for.
We're having serious questions about, we've had EDS now for probably, I don't know, 5 years. And we've had enough problems with the full text linking that we're starting to, and we use it to teach. We have a strong information literacy program, and so I was in the classroom today and some of the links didn't work, and we're starting to wonder if, and this is a conversation for the information literacy instructional people, but is there a real advantage to having students learn how to search individual databases and knowingly go to Science Direct or knowingly go to CINAHL because they want a nursing article? Is there, we want it to be just like Google, but we're not. And we're starting to look at it from an instructional point of view, and we're not sure what to do.
So your instruction now is more general. It's not specific to any certain database. It's just how to look. Yes, it's how to do a search, especially for scholarly journal articles.
Okay. So I don't teach, so I'm not gonna spew any knowledge of my own. But some of the instructional librarians that we have explained it to me like this. The way they do it here is they use Summon for instruction when they're teaching entry-level students and when they're teaching a theme course. So when it's students who might not be psychology majors, but they're stuck in a psychology course to fulfill a requirement for their general theme that they have to fulfill here. Our hope is that as students get better, as our students use Summon more, they're like, oh, look, I'm in PsycInfo for the 10th time today. Maybe I should just use PsycInfo the next time I want to start my research project. Or I end up in these 5 databases over and over and over again, and I get better results. Let me just use those. And then as they start to teach those upper level courses, they focus more on the native interfaces of the databases and less on how to use Summon.
That makes sense. And of course, we're a 2-year college, so we only have the freshmen and sophomores. But I think that it's confusing. It's confusing. It would be clearer, I think, if they were going to an individual database?
I don't teach. We've got 2 librarians that do teach literacy, and they're just starting with a class that's teaching general searching techniques and research techniques. But they encourage the faculty to bring their classes over for specific instruction to whatever that what the class is, and they'll outline the different databases that we have and collections that we have that are specific to what they're going to need, and then they focus on how to search in those. So it's kind of a combination, but they do like to have the faculty bring their students, their classes over for specific instruction.
What we do at Macomb, we're also a 2-year is, well, I'll just speak for myself because I know what I do, is we do a lot of the English composition classes and basic courses. And so I know that because people are used to searching Google that they like that one search box. So I'll show them on our Discovery later, our Primo, how to do it. And you can find articles, but then I'll go on and I'll show them an individual database or 2 and say, well, I prefer to do it this way for a variety of reasons. You have a better search capability. You can go through and more easily mark items if you've just got an hour and you want to go back and look at them in more detail later. So I've kind of got the foot in both camps, I guess, right now. My preference is personally, I like the individual databases, but I know that students may not always do that as a first step. So I want to show them the availability of the general search interface as well.
I don't teach, but I have heard a concern expressed, though, being over-reliant on any one brand, for lack of a better word, because I've heard, you know, our instructional brands going, well, I have students that are like, I found it in ProQuest. And you're like, aha, and which ProQuest database? So I'm like, I don't know, it's in ProQuest. So we're trying to work more on co-branding. I do know, because, again, we're running Encore with Primo, that there are people that prefer to search entirely inside Encore because the interface is easier to understand. The same with Classic. And they teach their students, you know, books are here, and then, again, go into the site-specific database. So I don't know. I personally see Discovery layers less for, I guess, what do you call it? Newbie researchers, and more also as for people that we don't necessarily teach, because we still have a lot of people that come to the website that never see a librarian and never talk to anyone. And we can put helpful hints in there, but it also should be easy to understand and intuitive. And hopefully we'll, you know, as we move closer to being Primo Alma, we'll show, you know, some of the people that haven't been as familiar with Primo because they rely more on the databases, things like the catalog scope, which I just recently got added. So we're integrating more into it, but it's still going to be a transition, I know, at least for a few disciplines.
Deja, how would you have the dual labeling? Maybe I'm not understanding what you were saying.
I'm not sure what I said with dual labeling. Are we talking about having them in both spots, or?
Something you said made me think you were going to have like 2 different names somehow listed under the same source.
Co-branding, maybe?
Co-branding, yeah. That's it.
Yeah, we just started, co-branding is when we put like Ferris State University on the vendor's platform, so on an EBSCO platform or ProQuest. I briefly tried doing direct linking with SFX, where if you clicked on the title, it took you directly to the article. And when we were doing that, we had to make the menu that slid out, say, you know, like Ferris State University, because otherwise you'll have students that are like, it's Ex Libris, and everything's Ex Libris. And you're like, no, not everything is in Ex Libris. So there was that confusion, and then that just failed because I didn't do a good enough job explaining what happens and what sort of errors will happen if it doesn't directly link to the article, because everyone was like, it was a great idea in theory, and then in practice it would suddenly die out in the middle of an instruction session, which was summer, but still you don't want to ruin anybody's day by not having things work when they're trying to teach.
Okay. Got it. Okay. I was just curious about proxies and what proxy methods people use, problems that you have with those. We use WAM, and other than the list being hugely long, it works pretty well.
We have Easy Proxy, and it seems to work well now that it was set up correctly. Apparently, when the person who retired from web services set it up in the last 2 weeks, he set it up very similar to how our WAM tables were set up, which is apparently not the right way to do things. I'm slowly being brought up on how Easy Proxy works, other than, you know, when you hit the proxy wall, go contact Seal in web services. So yeah, that has been straightened out, and hopefully we'll have usage stats and things will run through there. Previously, we had really odd CGI scripts for our links, which apparently were doing the same thing as a proxy because it would automatically redirect the user. But there's no usage stats on that, so it's really useful. So yeah, that's part of our process.
We have Easy Proxy at Grand Valley. It works pretty well. Outside of the, you know, someone's username and password gets stolen and someone tries to download a bunch of crap, it works good. So we've had to beef up the amount of time we pay attention to what's happening and how much is getting downloaded and whatnot. But other than that, it works well.
We have Easy Proxy at Macomb as well, and it works a lot better now that we moved to vendor-hosted Easy Proxy because we had a lot of problems with it when it was in our own IT area here.
We have Easy Proxy as well. We switched over from WAM about a year ago. So it was a lot of work making sure all of our stanzas got an Easy Proxy that we needed. But now that it's set up, it works really well.
Why did you switch?
The decision to switch was made before I came on board, but I think it was because there was a real problem with certificates, that we needed special certificates for WAM because users kept getting some kind of security screen of death, and it was creating a really big workload for our system staff, and my experience had always been with Easy Proxy, and it just seemed like ultimately it would be a little easier to maintain.
It looks to me, and I just see when we've switched to HTTPS for whoever's doing it lately, that the Easy Proxy stanzas are more complicated than the WAM. But is that not the case for you that have done both?
I think it kind of depends on the vendor and what they're doing on their end. I'm not the Easy Proxy administrator, but many of our HTTPS stanzas look just the same as they did before. But then if vendors are doing weird things, I know that Mary is wringing her hands over what are they doing and what do I have to put in to remove some weird character they're throwing into a URL or something. So, but many are the same.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the whole world is switching over to the secure HTTPS, but it's always such a headache. Okay, so just those two proxy methods, huh? Nobody else is doing anything different? Sounds like more people are using Easy Proxy, though. All right. Okay, so the last question is kind of the same thing about users and what their pain points are, what they complain about, and what we can do, not necessarily as librarians in general, I think, to help the users better find what they're looking for. I don't have any easy answers.
think every time I talk, I feel like the light goes off. I feel like something instructional librarians can do, and it's not on them completely, it's on technical services librarians as well, is to talk to each other. And if the more that we can find out how they teach, maybe the better we can set up resources, interfaces, and things like that, that will make it easier for them to teach, which in turn should make it easier for our users to access the resources, you would think. Sometimes I think we don't talk enough to each other. And so, you know, the technical people set up things the way they think they should be set up. And then the instructional librarians complain amongst themselves for a little while before it finally comes to a head and they get very angry about something. And it's like, oh, well, if you would have just told us that, we would have changed it. Or this is why it's set up that way. We can't change it. So sorry. So I think really the way that we can streamline the discovery process for users is by instruction librarians and technical librarians working together and talking to each other.
Yes, that exactly.
Or you can have such a tiny staff that your technical librarian also teaches. That helps us because she knows what's wrong and she can fix it.
That makes things really easy, right?
Yeah, sometimes I miss that because not doing ref and not teaching anymore. And I do have a group that meets to discuss these sort of issues, but I thought things would get channeled up a little bit more than I guess they are, because as Patrick said, sometimes you don't hear about it till it comes to a head and you're like, sorry, just tell me. I'm open to suggestion.
In instruction, we do cover the very basics of how to use Summon. And so I feel like that sort of, you know, helps the students with the discovery process.
Yeah, we have a small staff, so any changes, we usually see each other every day and can pass those things along. And if there are complaints that they have, they can easily walk 10 steps and let us know. All right.
This is, so we recently hired a new cataloger, and she's amazing and awesome. And one of her ideas is she wants to learn more about how the librarians are using the catalog, because that's her main focus is catalog materials. And one of the things she's volunteered to do is for librarians who are interested, she's willing to come in and sit on some of their instruction sessions to see how they teach, to see if there's anything she can do to records to make it easier for them in the classroom, which I thought was an interesting idea. Interested to see what comes of it, but I think the more we can do with that is good.
Our SFX admin did that a while ago before I got here a few years ago, and she said it was really helpful. We do have a usability committee that tests various things. It's mostly wording and icons right now, and because we're overhauling the website, that obviously takes precedence. But I have asked them, and they are working on, for those of you that don't have Primo, the default thing for the chat box to refine your results is called tweak my results, but once you see it as twerk my results, you can't unsee twerk. And I don't know of good language for that, because I'd say like narrow, refine, but those are all library words, so we have to get something the kids will relate to, but it's not associated with twerking.
I have another question about finding things that are broken links or whatever access has been cut off. Do you guys have a standard way to do that? Generally here, I find out from students, occasionally from the faculty, but usually a student will say, I tried to do whatever and it didn't work.
LibGuides actually has that built in, so we utilize that heavily to check things. You know,
how does that work?
Automatically. You run a report, and then it'll come back and tell you where the broken links are and direct you to the pages so that you can fix it.
Okay.
On the website, that's manual, obviously, and I would be responsible for fixing anything that was broken. We just did a website overhaul, so everything is up to date there as of right now, hopefully.
What's the report called?
Let me log into my admin account and I'll screenshot it for you. Hold on.
Okay, great.
So at Grand Valley, we have a report a problem with this page on the bottom of every page that replaces the one that campus uses. And when they do that, it grabs the URL of the page they were on, and then they can also put in a little comment about their problem. And then that gets sent to a shared email. That's our e-resource specialists, our web services librarian, myself, our technology manager, and then our developer on staff as well. And so whoever is available then tracks down the problem and fixes it.
Is that something that you added yourself, or is it a program that has a name?
I think it's something Matthew just added. Our web
Okay.
services librarian just added to the page.
We don't have a link checker, but if you're getting to resources via SFX, when you go through the link resolver, we enabled something Orbis Cascade rolled out, and I love stealing Orbis Cascade stuff. I'll just admit it, they do lots of good work. And it's a broken link report, and you can set up two, one that's very basic and just asks for like an email address if you want to follow up, and then there's another one that you can go through and it actually has like a form you can fill out. We've actually had really good luck with it, and I think we've been using about 6 to 9 months now. My only complaint being that people don't provide their email enough, because we can send them PDFs. If we can get to it, because that frequently is what happens, is we can get to it in 1 or 2 steps. And if we don't have your address, we can't send you the PDF back, and all we can sit there and go is, well, we can't have anything to fix. We don't know what you got caught up on. But the other thing I have is an ERM ticketing queue that I borrowed a presentation from, I think, Southern Georgia on Springy Camp a few years ago, but we don't have that hooked up to the front end of the library website. So that's mostly for librarians to send me stuff like this is broken, and allows us to follow it up. We're trying to get close and things.
In the chat, Beth mentions that with some individual titles, they have some student workers check them. We do some of that as well with smaller packages or titles. We'll have a student go through and pick a few things. One, to make sure we have access to what we're supposed to have access to, and then make sure it's working. So we do something similar to what Beth mentions in the chat.
Thanks, Saxony.
Sure.
And I know there used to be a URL tester inside Sierra, but I think in my first 6 months I ran it, and then I had one of our staff go against it, and it ended up being like 50% false positive and 50% false negative. And it was sort of like, okay, maybe we won't test links using Sierra anymore.
I should mention it's not like it's 100% accurate all the time, but it's a good starting point for the LibGuides link checker.
Just out of curiosity, how many broken links do you end up with when you run that?
I can check right now. Hold on. It says we have 14 right now, but I would have to double check those records to make sure that they are in fact broken.
And how long does it take to run?
I think it just runs automatically, but I'm not sure.
Oh, it's ongoing in the background all the time? Oh.
I think they only run it once a week. But if it finds things that are false positive, you can tell it that you don't want it to check that link again.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't see a place to say run report, so.
That's helpful. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Anybody have anything else that they want to talk about at this point? Okay. Let's see. Get this to go forward. There we go. Just FYI for everybody, for the MiALA conference, I've scheduled a dine around for the eResources IG at the Harrison Roadhouse, which is really close to the hotel where in the conference area. It's easy walking distance. And for Thursday night, we're going to do a Birds of the Feather lunch on Friday. If anybody wants to stop by, just lunch and conversation, nothing, no agenda. And Patrick has agreed to sit with me at the info fair and just talk to people. So if you want to be involved in any of that, we would love to have you, and feel free to stop by at any time. All right. I've forgotten what our next topic is, but I will send out a poll to see when that works for everybody. Probably not till the end of March. So we've got some time. Okay. Thanks for everybody for coming today, and let me know if you have any comments on the whole setup, how this ran. We'll see if we can do it better. Thanks.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you.